I'm sure you've already heard, and I'm sure I've probably seen the clips that were on Twitter. Steven Crowder severely abusing his wife. She's 8 months pregnant, as a lot of pregnant ladies do, especially in the comfort of their own back patio area. Looks like they have a nice pool. You can kind of see it in the shot. A brick. I don't know. I don't like that color brick. I find that a little bit too bright, but that's not the point of this video. They have this kind of sun-shaded, relaxing area, and she's got her belly out. She's very pregnant. She's they're seeming to be talking about her not fulfilling her end of the deal that he seems to want her to. And this is highly abusive. This is like mental control. You can really hear it in her voice, how scared, how nervous she is, how much she's having to ameliorate his feelings. So I'll just hit play here. This is nasty stuff, though. And this guy, you know, this is the conservative men, the real defenders of the family and of what's right and protecting children. He's smoking, too, by the way. He's smoking a cigar, of course, which is another one of those right-winger dude things that I find so weird. Around his pregnant wife. We'll hit play here.
Because I drew a boundary. I drew a boundary. No, you just did it. I drew a boundary of abusive and cruel. You were not taking the car. Because if you refuse to do wifely...
If you refuse to do wifely things, you mean like pick up the latest Nicolas Cage flick from Blockbuster because you want to surprise your husband because he loves Nicolas Cage movies? No, that's not what he means. He means do whatever he tells her to do and fulfill his needs. His underdeveloped stunted growth needs. This fucking man among men, this alpha, this fucking coward.
Then I will go pick up the groceries.
Oh.
There's no groceries. I would have steaks, wood pellets, my grill. I know it's not unreasonable.
He needs steaks, wood pellets, and for his grill. And he's shaming her and saying he'll go do it.
But I'll go do it. How about you first? Hillary, how do you respect the man? Yes. How do you man? I'm a man. Let's see, love respect. No. How do you man? No, you're not taking blood.
I think he's saying the other men you see, the mothers come back. Like, is he saying you're not being a mother? I mean, for a lot of women, this trap, this no-fault divorce thing. I actually was talking about this on one of my Valheim podcasts on Winners and Losers before this came out. Because Steven Crowder had done a video where he seemed like he was pretty nervous about some news coming up. This clearly is part of that. Maybe there's more. But he referred to the kind of the concept of no-fault divorce, which was a thing up until like the 70s or something. I don't have all the history in my head right now. But women used to not have the right to get a divorce without the man approving, meaning like it was not a one-person decision, or it was not it was up to him. It was up to your owner. It was up because you were property. You were made as to be a servant and to be property. This is what they want. This is what they want to go back to. They want women to fit into this role and to tolerate this kind of abuse. But he is her child. Like, he's basically her. So for a lot of women in these kind of like horrifying domestic situations where leaving is fraught with risk, they often can't. As you can tell in this video too, that you'll hear more about, is they'll restrict their car access. I've been seeing people tweeting and talking about a lot of that. One person even said that like I don't know if it was their own family or something, but they said like they had 5 cars, but the man would take all the keys with him whenever he would leave, make sure that she had no ability to use the car. It seems like they only have 1 car. Like, clearly Steven Crowder could afford multiple cars. So for some reason he's able to control her right to move around by limiting her use of a car. And that's a very common way for abusers like Steven Crowder to control their spouse. But the mother thing is just like they're all the abuse that was suffered. So shitty parents produce shitty parents. It's not that it's a guarantee that if you have a crappy parenting, if you grow up under a stressful childhood with a bad parent, you are automatically going to be a terrible parent, but you're going to have to break the cycle, or at least arrest some of the cycle. I don't think people who do break the cycle necessarily can do it all the way. We'd like to think that that's possible, and I think it is in some cases. But Steven Crowder's dad is at work here, meaning like his. I know his dad is a big part of his business and his operation. Some people have speculated that Steven probably has some sort of LGBT wrestling happening inside of him. I don't know. I don't have any evidence necessarily, other than just an inkling or a feeling. Wouldn't surprise me. A lot of times, the guys that are really worked up about that issue tend to have some of their own reconciling that needs to be done, to say the least. But you produce stressed out childhoods are how we end up with a society full of assholes. Stressed out children become assholes, and they become. What happens is your development stops, or slows, or is diverted into something worse. What is normally a healthy childhood development, where you're learning to enter the world and to make your own decisions and to rely on your parents and to rely on your community and to develop your own sense of self, your own sense of worth, and find what things that you like to, whatever, like the kind of ways, the sort of steps we go through in our worlds as children into teenagers, into adulthood, is not the same for everybody. People have brains that work differently. So it's a kind of a big, messy process. But when you're abused, or when you're neglected, and when you're faced with the kinds of stresses that are abundant in America, that process of developing your sense of self, stops, slows down. And so if you're lucky, you eventually get to it, or you go through phases of calamity, and then you end up being forced to confront things, cope, reparent yourself, regrow. I've definitely been in my own way. I looked after my mom in ways that were probably pretty unhealthy when I was a kid, like parentification of her needs. She had a lot of issues that were happening and were very at the forefront of many of my formative years. So I know that that's a thing for me, and it doesn't make you into a conservative. It just means that your life is now going to be on hard mode, and you're going to be susceptible to being lied to, or it might change the way you're able to trust people, either too much or too little, or something like that. Or it changes the kind of relationships that you expect, and it often informs worldviews. Like the conservative mindset, I would suggest, is one that's built around. That's why that mother's comment really jumped out at me. Like these are underdeveloped, emotionally underdeveloped men or boys whose time forced them to grow into male bodies, grown men bodies, but they're still lost in that. And a lot of people never grow out of it. A lot of people never necessarily deal with it. So that's why you have all this immature sort of juvenile jokesterism that seems to be mostly prominent on the right. And don't get me wrong, I'm not saying I'm some mature example of what you're supposed to be. I would never suggest that. I love dumb juvenile humor. I used to subscribe to I can't think of it. Those literary magazines that are for snobs. I was trying to catch you off guard, but I don't have the words in my brain. Let's keep watching. I'm just rambling here. But he's telling her she can't have the car. If you're not watching this, if you haven't seen it, she's standing and he's sitting, and she's sort of got her bag around her shoulder, like she's getting ready to leave.
Stephen,
You're not taking the car.
Stephen,
You are not.
then I will ask them to pick me up. Would you like me to ask?
Oh, that's right.
So she even needs to get permission about who it would be okay, because if she knows that if she says I'll have my friend Stacy come get me, she knows that he'll probably she's dodging his. She knows that she's in a minefield. This is what abusers do too. They set mines all over the place, and that she has to step very carefully. So her body language, her voice, her disposition are all indicative to me of chronic abuse, of having to fawn, having basically to make sure that his needs are paramount, because this is literally dangerous for her. She's in a dangerous situation. People like this, he's much stronger than she is. She's 8 months pregnant with twins. This is where the violence in domestic situations comes from, this kind of thing. It's terrifying. She's a hostage.
In an Uber.
Okay, Stephen, I can't.
feeling
So
some
he wants his pregnant wife to go get him pellets for his grill and steaks. And he tells her to get an Uber. She's 8 months pregnant. Get an Uber and go get me my grill pellets. And I'm going to sit here and smoke a cigar. That's fucking sick, man. What the fuck? I wouldn't let my pregnant wife do shit unless she wanted to. I mean, I wouldn't be like, I wouldn't force her to not do anything. But if she's like there's a whole dog walking thing going on here too. Bending over is hard, man. I'm fat right now. Believe me, I know what it's like to be 8 months pregnant. It sucks.
strength.
Steven.
Like I can't
Steven.
go. Listen to me.
I'm gonna rewind a little.
You want to walk out right now? Strength.
Steven.
Like I
A little
can't.
more.
Okay, Steven, I can't.
Feeling some constraint.
Steven.
Like I can't go.
Steven.
Listen to me. Listen to me. You want to walk out right now? Listen to me. I can't go to the gym. I can't go to my tailor.
Okay, so his whole feeling some constraints is him saying to her, "Oh, you don't like being constrained? Well, if you leave, I'm constrained. You're hurting me if you take the car." He can't go to the gym. He can't go to his parents.
I can't call my friends. I can't go. I can't be home. You're gonna take the car and leave me here. Hillary, just think of how boxed in you've made me.
What do
He's the victim. Conservative men are the victims. The world is unfair to them. And his wife is victimizing him by boxing him in. Look at how crazy that is. This guy is such a child. Actually, that's not fair to children. He's such a broken piece of crap human being. It's tragic in a sense because this stuff does source back to childhood, but he's abusing other people now. The mother of his children, of all people, too. And this is the world that they pine for. I'm sure we'll see a lot of conservative men turning up and speaking out against Steven Crowder here. I'm sure we're going to see a big flood of them. All these manly alpha boys are going to definitely call out this like well-known famous millionaire who walks amongst them. Of course not. Of course not. I think I saw someone tweet something smart, or just like describe it as like, instead of seeing it as the misogynistic abuse that it is, so many are just going to see this as a guy having a bad day. That's what it is. And like my thoughts about that sort of thing is like, that's what white supremacy is it's child abuse cover up. A big part of not just child abuse, domestic abuse, spousal abuse. A huge reason these guys are so nervous and worried and freaking out that they're losing their status at the top of the hierarchy. One is that they think that the hierarchy will always be a hierarchy, that it's always going to be someone dominates. So they conceptualize others having power as doing to them what they've done to the society, to the world. They don't understand. They can't really grasp their head around. We have to even out power structures and let people live the lives that they want to live while we work towards community to help community strengthen communities for other people and ourselves. They see it all as hierarchy. But the white supremacy, the family is property thing, that is one of the vectors of such violence and horror and stress and abuse, often at the hands, or primarily, I mean, abuses can also go other directions or can emanate from the woman to the man. That is possible. But the primary construct in this country was that you owned your wife, you owned your kids, and you can do whatever you want to them. And so you got lucky as a person who was born. Your luck was a huge factor in terms of, did I get a dad who beats mom? Did I get a dad who beats the kids, who hurts the kids, who does other things to the kids? Is there, like, if you got lucky, you weren't squirted out into a family that was like this. So not every family was necessarily like this. I'm not saying that, but what the major thing that they're afraid of losing, partly this whole reactionary freak out about their loss of being the dominant players in this bizarre society. It's so strange to think of a society that just venerates one specific type of person over others, is the cover up of all the abuse. Not that the abuse is all going to be, we're not going to take down the curtain and show all the abuse. And there's abuse in all men. I'm not all men. I'm not saying, not just conservatives. I'm not just only applying that to the conservative side. I think that that's the side that's pushing harder for people who use phrases like family values. They tend to be talking about situations like this. And maybe, I'm not saying they all do that, but it's also something that lefty men have to be conscious of too, and work on. It's about males. It's about this just as the people of the past were wrong about so many of the ways the world worked, they were wrong about gender because it was convenient for them to have very simple, strict definitions, and it harms people to either you conform to it, like this woman is trying to do because she's afraid and she's at risk of danger right now. Although she finally is able to, she does divorce him. I think she actually leaves him during this day. I don't know the whole story. I don't want to. But if you don't conform to those strict gender roles, those strict kind of societal roles, then you're abused and hurt. Not to suggest. I mean, the queer side of things, autistic people were pushed out in ways. Disabled people were pushed out ways. If you're not conventionally attractive in a certain way, your value was diminished. If you weren't able to fit into the mold, they forced you to fit into the mold. A lot of people did bend themselves to fit into the mold, but not everybody could. And the world where we allow people to be who they are, we embrace the differences and the diversity and all the other stuff that's kind of cheesy, is the world that threatens their ability to hide all this abuse, all this stuff. The cover up is a big part of the white supremacist, my family is my property thinking that they're so desperate to keep hold of. You don't talk about it. There was so much abuse happening in churches, happening in families that was known, but it was also, well, don't bring it up. We're not going to, what am I supposed to do? Turn in the preacher? What am I supposed to do? Now you're making it uncomfortable for me. It's a lot of people were complicit in the abuse of their children by their family, their others in the family or something like that. Sometimes it didn't necessarily go that way, but the cover up, the society's willingness, because it's a difficult thing to talk about. It's also one of the benefits of, when I say benefit, I mean one of the ramifications of an individualistic programming, of making people all think of individualism, because then whenever you talk about this kind of topic, it becomes immediately threatening to talk about this, because people have an individualistic frame where their defenses come up because they feel like, oh, you're saying I was a bad parent, I was bad, I did bad things. Well, I guess in direct abuse is yeah, but but there's also a culture here that then we ignore. That's the real benefit of it for the system, is that it prevents us from examining the way the system should be changed, the way the culture allowed for this kind of abuse to be normalized. And it is better, I guess. I think we're still so incredibly far. We're still in a very much dark ages with that sort of thing. It's better than it used to be. Let's just keep going here. Sorry, I keep interrupting.
You need me to pick up. I'll get it. I'll be back when I'm back.
No, that doesn't work either. You'll be back when you're back. That doesn't work either.
See,
Do you understand the difference between my life being set to the second and you going, I'll be back when I'm back?
Steven?
Oh, he's being so abused by her because she doesn't know when she'll be back. It doesn't work for him. He's gonna blow more cigar smoke at her.
The only way out of this is discipline and respect.
That's the only way out of this. What the fuck? That's so weird. Discipline and respect. I need to discipline you. This is what's so twisted about it, is that he wants a mother, but he also wants a woman who he can control. Meaning, like, it's not like these broken abusers, these little damaged, underdeveloped, emotionally stunted men, quote unquote. They want to own and destroy and command. That's what ownership is. Ownership is the thing that ownership allows you, is the right to destroy, the right to use, the right to exploit, the right to share, even the right to discard, the right to control. And they own their wife. And he is telling her what she can do to get out of this. So he's putting her in a trap, and and it's discipline and respect. Like he's been reading fucking Bill O'Reilly's journal.
It's discipline and respect. It's the only way out of it, or we're at an impasse.
We are at an impasse.
Good. Because you can't have any discipline and respect.
Yeah.
Yeah. There you go. You throw your hand, you give up so easily.
I don't give up, Steven.
You give up so easily. I just said the only way out of this is discipline and respect. You said, then we're at an impasse.
Steven, no, we are at an impasse, okay?
That's her basically being like, I'm gonna divorce your ass if you fucking. But she's 8 months pregnant. That is such a vulnerable state, man. The stress of this. That's another thing I was thinking about too, is like the stress of childhood, of gestation. I remember King Hartman once talking about this. I don't know. I don't have the recent science on it, but about cortisol or cortisone, the stress hormone, that in times of very stressful life, like wartime eras, the children, babies were born with mothers that had higher levels of stress, and therefore they probably had more like aggressive personalities that came out of that. And then like lower stress levels means a slightly better rounded, maybe less aggressive type of child. I don't know if there's any recent science about that or what that is. I'm just kind of remembering from King Hartman, Tom Hartman, the guy who spells every part of his name wrong. Um, but this is also like a horrifying thing that's happening to this infant that's in, you know what I mean, like to the babies inside her that are, whose mother is struggling, whose her whole being is must just be flooded with stress hormones. Um, you know, and she's alone. She's isolated by this guy, and that's another thing that's terrifying. So I had a bunch of notes I wrote about how wealth allows you to buy community, which is truly, I mean, like this is a woman with a lot of money. I mean, she married Steven Crowder. I've also seen some commentary like, you know, she's not that say people are saying she deserves it. No one, I didn't see that. I imagine someone has said that, but they weren't saying she deserves this. But like, she knew who he was targeting. She knew who what his politics are, his prominence in the conservative movement. You know, fighting, you know, agitating for oppressing others and humiliating others and dehumanizing others. And she's married to Steven Crowder. Like you wouldn't think Steven Crowder's wife would be of the utmost moral character, but that it's becomes a problem when it happens to them, and that's true. I mean, yeah, of course. Like, yeah, this is. I feel terrible for the they can hear it in her voice. Um, the Yeah, I lost track of. I had a thought there. Let's just hit play.
I love you, but Steven, your abuse is sick. Your abuse
Watch it.
is sick.
Watch it. Fucking watch it.
I'm gonna let go. I'll get what you need me to get. And I need some space. We need to just stop engaging for a little bit. Okay? I love you. I love you very much.
I don't love you. That's the big problem. I've never received love from you. And the fact is, when I go, look, I need you to do A, B, C, and D, you just be disciplined about it. You go, no. But
you should be disciplined about his errands that he wants her to run. He sits around. This is brutal, man.
I love you more than life itself. Okay. Put on some gloves. No. But I love you more than life itself. That's not fair. It's not fair, and it's disingenuous. Hillary, you're right. We're at an impasse. Become someone that's you need, day in and day out, worthy of a wife. No, not as a wife. I didn't say as a wife. Hillary, come on now.
I'm not.
It's a little glitch or something there, but he's saying become someone, become a wife who's worthy. Like, it's also just so warped. It's so twisted, man. As he's lecturing her, she's trying to get out the door to take her 8-month huge belly body to do errands to get him grill pellets and walk the dog. So he talks about gloves a couple times. It's a little, you don't know, it's not obvious what that is. Apparently there's a medicine that the dog needs or something, and pregnant women aren't supposed to touch different pills, I guess that's a thing. So he wants you to put the gloves on in order to be safely handling the medicine for the dog, I think is what the gloves are about.
I'm not gonna engage anymore. I'm gonna go. I'll text me what you need. I'll get you what you need. I love you. I'm committed to you.
Put on some gloves. Are you committed enough to do those things?
I'm not gonna.
Are you committed enough to do those things? You're not committed to anything.
So you're not committed enough to put on gloves like I'm commanding you to. Man. Like, this should get him banned from owning weapons, right? And like, shouldn't we allow domestic abusers? This is something that is in the gun debates, the gun laws, and the right wing will always push back against the NRA funded monsters that, you know, if you abuse your spouse or if you're caught doing something violent, it's reasonable to say, well, you're a person who's given up their right to have a gun. A gun is a very violent tool. It's capable of committing tremendous harm and violence, intimidation, threats. And if you show that you're violent that is an indicator that we, as a society, don't want to trust you to have a tool of violence, the most effective tools that humans have come up with. But of course, this means he'll just, there won't be any of that. He'll still be able to buy as many guns as he wants. This is the guy that wears the holster. He wears his emotional support holster on air. I think he has a gun on his desk as part of his thing. This is where a lot of this stuff ends up with a husband killing their wife. Husbands are, I don't know the stats, but it's like a major part of domestic violence. And I'm sure any pushback from her escalates. And so she's telling him she loves him, she's committed to him, and she's trying everything she can to keep him from exploding into something worse. Because there's always that physical threat. Yeah, but it's gross.
You're not committed to anything. You just said I love you. I'm committed to it. Walk the dogs. Put on some gloves. Walk the dogs. Put on some gloves. Are you committed enough to do those things? Are you committed enough to do those things? Are you committed enough to do those things?
I'm gonna just
Walk the dogs. Put on some gloves. Are you committed enough to get the medication the dogs take? No, you take that in.
Okay, so he's standing at the door. She's sort of going in and out. She did grab the dog leash. Then a thing on screen comes up that says, the text that says, as the Crowders head inside, Stephen gets angrier and angrier and by his own admission screams, "I will fuck you up," at his pregnant wife, Hillary, who then flees their home. So she does seem to leave today, or as of this day, at least. All right. Okay. Yeah, that's ugly, man. That's nasty stuff, dude. That is just another thing that just kind of occurs to me, though, is that we're watching this. We're actually, you and I are watching this, or you're hearing this. The fact that this is out, I don't know where this came from. If it was leaked by someone on purpose, from her side or whatever, I don't know how that happened. But just the fact that this was filmed, to me, this is more of a comment. And you see ring.com in the upper left corner of the video. Ring is not the only camera. There's all sorts of different security camera systems. You can Google Ring cameras and police overlaps and the way police get access to Ring footage and stuff like that. There's all sorts of crazy stuff happening with regards to the security state. But the surveillance, the big surveillance of our world, the reliance on security systems and technologies that has exploded lately in recent years because of the, affordability, miniaturization of cameras and drones and all kinds of, car cameras, and your phone has a microphone thing that's always running, or, all the ways that our world is surrounding us with recording devices. This is the Steven Crowder house. It's got a camera in this very private space. I'm sure he didn't want this video out. It's to cover his door, and it's not irrational to want security cameras. I'm not saying I think it's wrong. I'm saying that we've built a world where it's logical to be paranoid. We've built a world based on people like Steven Crowder agitating and advocating for insecurity as the core of the economic engine, which drives all the ways people are afraid, the nervousness, the paranoia, the notion that you expect that your home might be broken into, or that you're going to need evidence in case something happens. And that's rational. I don't think I'm not trying to say anybody who puts up cameras around their house is doing something wrong. I helped my brother install some cameras on the back of his house. And it's like, because it does make sense. If something happens, I would want a camera. I totally get it. That's useful information. But it is an emergent phenomena of a culture and a society built around paranoia and fear and worry directly, like this whole freaking concept that that someone else is going to come into my home. And like, how do we design a society so that never happens? I don't know if it's possible, but we can design a society where everybody's needs are taken care of, where everybody's childhood is not filled with stress and not filled with isolation because they have some sort of abuser dynamic or something. There's all kinds of ways that childhood stresses lead to adults who make poor choices. There's all sorts of ways that we could make. Here's some other thing. I'll try to get this quickly. God damn it, it's an hour and 30. trust. How do you know a stranger is safe? How do you trust a stranger? It's not necessarily rational to trust that every person you see on the street is safe, right? You make snap decisions based on their appearance, and you kind of are ready in case you need to do something. That's sort of just the way you go through the world. People have different dispositions. But one way you could actually make it so that you know something about that stranger, what builds trust is knowing something about somebody. What builds trust is having shared interests or having a shared common experience or some sort of way of knowing something about that person. Most people you can trust. But how would we build a society where I'd never seen that person before, but I totally trust that they're not going to harm me, no matter what they look like? You'd make it so that that they were raised without stressed out parents. That they had access to all the healthcare that was ever needed for them throughout their life. Preventative care, especially, meaning like in this world, prevention would save us all so much more money in terms of the healthcare that people use. That they had a very, very healthy education, that they were given all kinds of opportunities. And if they were somebody who needed extra help, that they had extra help. That if they had disability in their family, that the society provided help for them. Abundance. That the scarcities of the current economic era, the false scarcities, the ones of restricted human things that humans need to be healthy and whole, are not there. Meaning that we allow them to be in abundance as they are. The abundances of warmth and safety and comfort and love and security and food and shelter and electricity. Even electricity is a little complicated because no matter what, you got to make pollution to make electricity. But how do you know that stranger is someone you can trust? Well, it's because it's the way you get there is if their story is your story, meaning that their childhood was kind of like yours. All these ways that because we have a culture built around something that actually matters. We don't do that. We don't have a sense. This is why the Democrats are offering up themselves as just being different than the Republicans, slightly better than the Republicans. It works, I guess. People are horrified by the fascist right wing right now, and they should be. But we're not offering a more cohesive, hopeful project for what a community, what a proper future should be, which is one where we know we can trust anybody. And the world without all that trust, especially exaggerated or magnified by the accelerants of movies and shows and cultures and TV shows and games, all the ways that we are sort of conditioned to use violence as a way to solve problems, builds towards putting cameras everywhere. It's feeling safer knowing that you're recording your backyard. And then he's abusing his wife, and he's being ensnared. I don't know if that's the right word, ensnared, but he's caught. He's trapped by his own paranoia here. Like the fact that this camera we're not watching footage of someone breaking in or him puking, which would be kind of funny. Just because he got too drunk or something. We're watching footage of him being a complete horrible human being, a complete piece of crap. So I don't know. I just thought there was something kind of, I don't want to say poetic or whatever, but there's the fact that the use of this technology is very much a consequence or a downstream effect of a hyper individualized and hyper paranoid kind of society. And even maybe in the utopian world I would build, there's probably still would be cameras around the place. I'm not saying it's technology that shouldn't be used, but this is really dark stuff, man. This is really sick. This is really, really, really nasty stuff here. Yeah. All right. Okay. I'm not gonna. All right. That's fine. That's it is. Oh, finally, let's end on this. This is Steven Crowder getting beat up by union guys. This happened about 10 years. I don't know the context. I should have looked it up, but this will be the final chunk. It's about a minute long. I'll probably pause once or twice, but he's getting yelled at by a really big, strong looking guy in glasses, a bald guy. Don't mess with a bald guy holding a picket sign, okay, everybody? They're protesting for hair. He wants to get his hair back. No.
Get the out of my face!
Don't get on the tent.
Get the out of my face. You heard a lady in there. You're addressing me.
I do want to point out the sign behind the guy that says union busting is disgusting. I agree.
You hurt nobody. You hurt no. Get out of my face. Back the fuck up. Stop turning down the tap. Back the fuck up.
Crowder's in like a black leather jacket. He's got a scarf around. He's much younger, but he's being the jackass that he is. He's not a small dude. I mean, I think physically he's like muscular. You know. Here's a guy getting into his face. There was an edit there, so now the guy's punching him. I don't know what happened though, but the guy's swinging. Crowder just basically put his hands up and kind of like protected himself.
You got a gun. You don't want anybody to get hurt. I'll kill a motherfucker with a gun. I killed 20 motherfuckers with a gun.
All right, someone's screaming about a gun because it's America. That's what happens. The Crowder's ducking into like a white tent of some kind. Some guy grabs Crowder by the back of the collar. And they've collapsed the tent somehow. I'm not sure what the whole scenario is. Might even be Steven's cameraman because he does kind of indicate to the camera, like puts his hands up, sort of.